So I want to thank you for joining us on the battlefield. You're listening to Chris and Trey from We Are America Radio, Red State Talk Radio, Buzz Radio Network. And look, I wanted to mention, we don't often mention it, but I wanted to mention it now. Our book, Deus Ex Machina. Trey and I wrote a book called Deus Ex Machina, The Progression of Secular Socialism. And this book chronicles the progression of socialism in this country. And it's been veiled in another name called progressivism. And, so when we see people like Bernie Sanders running as an open socialist, it's kind of scary for people like Trey and I that have been watching this and studying this, because the veil's coming off. That's what it is. So Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton are socialists that have been running under a progressive platform. Now, the book outlines basically, it goes all the way back to Tocqueville, even talks a little bit about John Locke and the greatness of America. And then as you get towards the meat of the book, it starts going into the history of socialism. And I know, it's kind of an academic book, but we try to, make it to where you can relate to it. And actually, I believe we've done a really good job of chronicling the rise of socialism out of Eastern European culture and really out of the French Revolution. So basically, what we've seen in the United States is the rise of socialism, the rise of what's not American. And it's here. It's been here for over 100 years. And this book explains the steps that have been taken in this country and the mechanisms used to install socialism in what was once the greatest country known to mankind and arguably history. So if you go get this book, you can get it actually at Amazon, Amazon.com. Just do a keyword search for Chris Pilier, or you can look up Trey Roberts. And this book is definitely something to have. And look, if you get into a conversation with a progressive or a liberal, and you're explaining why you would not vote for, say, a Bernie Sanders or a Hillary Clinton even, you can pull this book out and say, here, read this book. This explains where we've been, where we're going. Because socialism doesn't work. There's a reason why people have run under progressivism. Because they don't want to say the word socialism. Because it's failed. It's evidence that's failed. There's whole regions of the world that have been devastated by people that have been trying to install socialism. So we talk about Donald Trump being a progressive. This book explains progressive tactics. Even gets into Alinsky. You often hear people talk about Saul Alinsky and how Barack Obama used Alinsky tactics. This book goes into it and explains who he was and how he influenced society, and how SDS and the Weather Underground and so forth utilized his tactics in order to be able to spread socialism in this country. So pick it up at Amazon.com today, and it's definitely worth the purchase for your intellectual investment.
We're here to fix the machine.
Battlefield Live. You're listening to the Battlefield Live with Chris and Trey from We Are America Radio, Red State Talk Radio, Lanterns.buzz, Battlefield.buzz, and Buzz Radio Network. I want to thank you for joining us today. That started with the
power all of our cults too, but that ain't going to happen.
I think what you're getting at though is that you don't want people to vote for Trump for the cult of personality. You want people to vote for somebody with principles, and we both know that based on what we've heard from Trump and what we know about Trump. He is not about principles. He's about getting elected and becoming president and so-called making America great again, which sounds great.
Correct. No, absolutely. And look, and on top of that, if there's anything that the left, if 20% of Democrats agree with Trump's personality or principle or whatever the case may be, Well, that's all. What else do you need to know?
Well, the thing that I'm looking at here, and for someone that, like myself, that's been really active in the political environment, that has abandoned and thrown off the husk of the GOP, the Republican Party, and has been really truly looking for principled people. I know there's people out there like me that really see Trump and they go, you know what? I really like Ted Cruz, or I like another, maybe Marco Rubio or whoever. But Donald Trump just seems like he's most electable and he's most popular and he's in the polls, and we really just want somebody that's a little bit better than the left.
Explain that to me. First of all, I know you're not going to name names, but I can't even imagine the type of individual who would say something like, who actually thinks that Donald Trump is electable.
Well, let me ask you this.
The media
let me ask you this. When was the last time you've seen somebody that was espousing, I'm not saying they believe, but espousing conservative principles this high in the polls, this popular, and it has this much energy behind them? When was the last time you've seen that? How about Romney? Was Romney that way?
No.
Was question of what's going on with the Tea Party? The bottom line is the Tea Party wanted a conservative to be this effective. There was a validation needed for conservatism, and Donald Trump brought that. I thank Donald Trump for that. Now, the other part of that is that he was doing it because he knew that the Reaganite type people, the people that were conservative out there, were the majority of the country. 40-50% of the country is conservative. I'm talking about conservative in a respect that Trey and I are conservative. They're that way. The bottom line is we haven't had anybody out there that has energized the conservative base of the whole country and got them to stand up and cheer. And now we got somebody like that. And guess what? People are awake now. And the problem that people have is that they've gotten that fix that they've been waiting for since 2008 or before. They finally got that fix, and they don't want to break it. They don't want to get, because there's a fear there that Cruz is not going to bring that fever of conservatism, or Rubio's not going to bring that. And I'm not advocating either one of those two candidates. The point is, we're talking about Trump, is that Trump has energized the country in a way that we've not seen in a very long time, arguably in history, or at least modern history. Reagan arguably did that, right? I mean, am I making more sense now?
I hear what you're saying, but
get past what's right and what's wrong about Trump. Think about how he is running as a conservative, how his message is conservative. I'm not talking about whether he's conservative or not, because you'll
I don't hear.
turn your
Listen,
eyes away from it.
I don't hear a conservative message when Donald Trump speaks.
When he says that he wants to close the border, he wants to put up a fence.
How is that uniquely conservative?
Because that is is it not a conservative position to put up a wall on the border?
Border security was passed with what do you call that?
Let me ask you a question. You have said it over and over on the show that you are a huge supporter of Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz's position on the border is to put up a fence on the border, correct?
Yeah.
Donald Trump says the same thing. In fact, I think Ted Cruz has been playing it brilliantly because he's sitting back. He's allowing Donald Trump to make the way that he's going to ride if he's going to win. What's other policies that all right, so the Syrians coming into this country, the refugees, that is a conservative principle based on trying to assimilate people into the country rather than just letting people come in here and run amok. I would agree, or I would say that Ted Cruz holds a similar position, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean,
right,
when you make it so simple and so superficial, like conservatism is not just a bumper sticker level
understand that, Trey,
of conservatism.
But Trey, how many people out there
spend hours and hours in front of a computer reading about the history of the country, how many people do you know that sit and work hours and hours putting a conservative radio show together? How many people do you know that sit for hours and put together that spend the energy of researching this information for the people that listen to our program and go to our? How many people know the history that we do? Not many. Not many people know true conservatism except out of what they were taught when they were younger. They know and they feel what's right, but they don't understand. They hear what Donald Trump says and it sounds like home to them. But what they need to understand, and they're hearing this from us now, is that
yeah, but Chris, when they hear Donald Trump, what sounds like home to them is not conservatism. What sounds like home to them is aggressiveness and anger and punching back. That's my point.
But that's what cloaking
Donald
the message.
Trump and conservatism is resonating. That's not what's causing him to be popular across the spectrum of Republican and some Democratic voters.
No, because I think that what Donald Trump is doing is using his art of the deal mentality.
He's given a facade of strength.
Yes. And look, I'm not disagreeing with you, okay, because I understand what you're getting at. I think you and I are coming from a different angle. The bottom line is what Trump has done is he's taken conservatism and he's wrapped it in nationalism and populism, if you will. He's wrapped it in those two things, and that's the meatball, right?
Yeah.
That's the meatball that we talk about. You know, you give your dog a pill, you stick it in a meatball, and the dog will eat the pill because he doesn't know that there's a pill in it. Well, Donald Trump's doing that with conservatives. Barack Obama did the same thing with
progressives.
with the liberals. And I want to say, I'd rather even say this liberals. He used progressive Alinsky tactics in order to box up his socialism.
That's exactly
and
right.
hand it to the liberal, the left wing.
Chris, we're going to take it away and we're going to jump into the south side of Chicago. Now, Chris, if you've been keeping up with our south side of Chicago, you know that it is not a safe place. But, dude, you got to give it up to the ladies. Chris, they are launching sex strikes to end violence.
So sex strike, is that why you're saying I should give it up to the ladies?
No, but that's very clever of you, nonetheless.
I'm just saying.
So this comes out of
all
Fox
this talk about
Channel
Woodrow
5.
Wilson and the Byzantine Empire gets me all worked up.
So the women of Southside Chicago, they basically have had enough. They're going to say, fellas, you go out there and stop banging. Stop gangbanging.
Wait a second. What kind of gangbang are you talking about?
I thought I was correcting
You
myself.
did a double entendre there and you didn't even know
I
it.
find the difference between banging and gangbanging.
Gangbang.
Yeah.
Go to radio.battlefield.buzz to get showtimes, the latest audio and video podcast, links to our affiliates and social media sites, and latest announcements from the Battlefield Live radio program. We are here to fix the machine.
Doug, I never thought I could go back to school, but when it's this easy, it fits.
I'm right there with you, Jackie, taking classes, watching lectures in the living room on the iPad. It's not hard.
I can be a mom, make dinner, get my classwork done, and not miss a moment with my family. It's amazing.
Yes, it is.
Hey, it's Jackie Velasquez, and if Doug and I can do this, you can do this too. Higher education with Liberty University online.
Find out more about completing your college degree at the world's largest Christian university, Liberty University. Get all all the details right now. Grab your cell and dial pound 250. When prompted, say the keyword Liberty University.
Training champions for Christ since 1971. Liberty University Online. Find out more about learning online. Dial pound 250, then say the keyword Liberty University.
Liberty University Online with hundreds of degree programs to choose from. Call now, pound 250. Say the keyword Liberty University.
That's pound 250. Say keyword Liberty University.
Will you today, as is your normal tradition of doing radio, will you leave the radio program today ravaged and hungry and go get a footlong sandwich from Subway?
A $5 footlong?
A $5 footlong.
I'm sure Jared's going to be looking forward to that when he goes to jail.
Wow.
I mean, come on, dude. I mean, that dude's a piece of crap, huh?
I really didn't see that coming. And I guess in jail, neither will he.
Yeah, he won't. I mean, we should just stop this right now.
What? Yeah, that's what he's gonna say. What?
Go to radio.battlefield.buzz to get showtimes, the latest audio and video podcast, links to our affiliates and social media sites, and latest announcements from the Battlefield Live radio program. We are here to fix the machine.
You're listening to the Battlefield Live with Chris and Trey from We Are America Radio, Red State Talk Radio, Lanterns.buzz, Battlefield.buzz, and Buzz Radio Network. I want to thank you for joining us today.
So what I wanted to get into now, I wanted to dig a little bit into Bernie Sanders, if you will, and his way of campaigning, if you will. And let's make no mistake that Bernie Sanders has never hid.
You're very low.
His socialist tactics. Okay? He's never hidden his desire to confiscate property from the American people. And when I say confiscate, I'm not just talking about through taxes. I'm talking about actually going out and confiscating businesses, if you will. And if you think I'm goofing a little bit, if you go to our Twitter account, I just posted an article from the radical right-wing conservative website Yahoo Politics, and there is a article there. And, of course, I was being facetious there. There was an article called Bernie Sanders' Radical Past, How the Vermont Firebrand Started Wearing a Suit and Gave Up Taking Over Big Companies. So what is Bernie Sanders? Well, you just listen to what he says. He is a socialist. Now, in 1985, Bernie Sanders traveled to Nicaragua, where he attended an event that the One Wire report dubbed as an anti-U.S. rally. This is out of Yahoo. The leftist Sandinista government was celebrating the 6th anniversary of revolution that saw it take power from the American-backed dictator Anastasio Somoza. And I keep in mind, and we've talked about this before, is that just because someone is a dictator doesn't mean that he's it basically means that he could be better than another type of dictator. We saw this in Cuba. We saw this in Libya. We saw this in Egypt, where there was an actual secular dictator that was less threatening than the non-secular dictator that took over, specifically in Egypt and Libya. So where did I leave off? So Sanders was in a crowd estimated 500,000 people, many of whom were clad in Sandinistas' trademark red and black colors and chanting, "Here, there, everywhere, the Yankee will die." Of course, I wonder who he's talking about, right? The Yankee Americans. On stage, Nicaraguan President Daniel Ortega, if y'all remember him from the 80s, accused the U.S. government of state terrorism for supporting the rebels who were seeking to overthrow him. The Sandinistas and the CIA-backed Contras would fight into the next decade with allegations of human rights abuses on both sides. At the 1985 rally Sanders attended, Ortega vowed the Sandinistas would defend the revolutions with guns in hand. Sanders was being hosted by the Sandinistas as part of a delegation of American solidarity groups. He told reporters their decision to show support for the Nicaraguan government was patriotic. And this is a quote from him, "We want to show support for a small country trying to be independent, and we want to tell the truth about to the American people when we return." Sanders was in the midst of a revolution of his own. 4 years earlier, in 1981, he won a shocking victory by only 10 votes to become mayor of Vermont's largest city, Burlington. Sanders was elected on a socialist platform and led a mayoral administration that he had boasted more radical than any other in the country. Let's see. I'm going to read some quotes here. I don't want to read the entire. Here's a quote from him. I think from one end of this country to the other, people are ripe for political revolution. 50% of the people do not bother voting in a presidential and statewide election, Sanders said. The vast majority of those not voting are low-income people who have given up on America. The whole quality of life in America is based on greed. I believe in redistribution of wealth in a nation. So the bottom line is he is speaking quintessential Marxist rhetoric, class warfare, redistribution of wealth. All of this is evident in communism. And I know I've had friends and family that have said, "Oh, come on, Chris. You know, he's not a communist. He's maybe just we need a little bit of socialism." You know, Trey, I don't know how many times you've heard that. Have you heard friends or family or anybody say, we just need a little bit of socialism? We're seeing it on the internet.
Hell no.
No? Well, I've seen it. I've heard from friends that I was good friends with in high school say, the capitalist system has gone too far to the right. We need to swing that pendulum back to the left a little bit, and a little bit of socialism will give us a little bit of that.
Dude, you are not instilling any sort of hope in me by even just talking like this.
Well, it's factual information that I've heard from people. So the bottom line is that Bernie Sanders, what Bernie Sanders wants to do is he wants to tax a huge portion of the population in order to redistribute that money to pay for things like health care, to pay for things like college for everybody that wants to go to college. There's estimates on his proposals, Trey, that are over $16 trillion. This is over what our entire national debt is.
Yeah,
okay?
I saw one recently that had it listed as Bernie's $17.9 trillion secret.
Yeah, so my question would be, and this is for people that maybe don't know a whole lot or haven't followed a whole lot of history, what happens when you do massive, massive spending in a country? Well, let's give some examples, okay? Let's talk about the Weimar Republic. Let's talk about Zimbabwe. Let's talk about what's going on in Venezuela right now. If you go look at what's going on in Venezuela, there's massive inflation. Let me explain what happens with massive spending by the federal government. I want you to think about it like this. Make it really simple. Imagine if we took and gave everybody in the country $1 million. How much is $1 million worth at that point? Nothing, right?
Crap.
It's worth nothing. I mean, it may be worth $1 million, but what is $1 million going to buy you?
It's literally worthless.
If everybody has $1 million, everybody's going to raise their prices through the roof because everybody's got $1 million. So now a gallon of milk will no longer cost $5 or whatever it is now. It may cost $50 because people are willing to spend $50 for a gallon of milk because they got $1 million. Everybody. Right? Cars will no longer be $30,000, $40,000. They'll be $150,000. That is an example of inflation in a simple term. Okay? So when you do massive redistribution of wealth, if you take wealth from the so-called rich, quote unquote, and you give that money to people that haven't worked for it, those people are not attached to that wealth through their labor. They're not going to respect it as much because it's not a piece of them. If you own a home or you own a car, all right, you take care of that vehicle. And I'm saying if you own it, if you actually work for it and paid the note, and you cut your grass, and you weed your garden, you do all of these things because your home and your vehicle is an extension of you. There's a reason why people prefer certain types of vehicles and prefer certain types of homes. Because they know that it is a reflection of them. They want it to represent them. They get their color they like. They get the certain type of wheels they like. They get the type of brand car, whether it's a Chevrolet or a Ford or a Hyundai or whatever, a BMW or a Mercedes, because it represents who they want to be. That is what property is, and it's an extension of you, especially if you worked for it. So when you just take money and give it to people that they did not work for and call it charity, they will not take care of that. Have you ever driven by a housing project? And look, there is a need for in my opinion, outside of my strict ideology in the ideal world, there should be a small safety net. Okay? And that may be shocking to some of you that are listening. But the bottom line is the reason why people that live in those safety net places and they don't take care of it is because it's not an extension of them. In fact, they don't like it because this mentality that they have of being on welfare. So the bottom line is that the destruction of wealth is what takes place when you redistribute it. If you redistribute wealth, it destroys value. It not only destroys the value of property, it destroys the values of people. Because in order to operate in a civil society, you have to be a value-based person. You have to have values and morals. Because if you're going to sell a product to somebody, you have to be a person that people want to do business with. If you're a crappy individual and have terrible values, nobody's going to want to do business with you.
Yeah, but if you do have crappy values or nobody wants to do business with you, you get big enough to influence government to then force people to do business.
That is fascism. That is what we're dealing with now. A lot of people go to Walmart and they don't like going to Walmart because they don't like Walmart people for whatever reason. They don't hold the values, but they have to go to Walmart because it's the only place in town. And the reason why is because people from Walmart lobby Congress and the federal government and get subsidies. And when that may be through taxes, right?
We were warned, Chris. Capitalism has no choice but to become this big thing of self-interested. But this is with any system. When the people, our founders told us time and time and time again that unless we stayed virtuous, unless this country continued to be run by people who followed religion and the Bible. Like, this is what happens when you take the humanity out of economics. When you take, forget religion. Just I had a conversation today with someone about this. It's the humanity. The lack of humanity is why our inner cities look the way that they do. Humanity is why we are in 2015 still ripping apart the children and generations in their mother's womb. Humanity is the reason that we allow millions of people to come across our southern border and live as an underclass slave population. I mean, it's all our lack of humanity. And I know one way that I'm reminded of my humanity, and that's in my Christian faith. And I think that, it's probably overstated at this point, but I mean, this is like the biggest falling away of the nation. Everybody at the time of the founding and shortly before and after may not have been Orthodox Christians. Many of the founders were not Christians like we would think today, an evangelical or something like that. But we've talked about what they at least did. They acknowledged some Judeo-Christian basics. They respected the Judeo-Christian ethic. And what progressives have done successfully over the last 100 years is disconnected the general population from its history, from its religion, from that ethic, from the truth of what made America great. If Donald Trump wants to make America great again, then he needs to be up there and be the biggest promoter of revival. He needs to be the biggest one to call the nation to prayer once again, to try to drive individuals back in, not using legislation, by the way, but to try to drive and encourage individuals to get back into their local churches, to open their Bibles and begin reading once again. Because it's only, as the founder said, through a virtuous people that we will continue to be free. Because and we have pretty much lost all of our humanity. I mean, look, Sarah Palin has traded principles for power. All these Republican people have felt powerless, and for the first time in maybe 7 or 8 years, they're seeing somebody in Trump who makes them feel powerful again. UN has some new goals.
The UN? The UN?
Yeah, the UN. UN has some new goals. The 193 member countries adopted 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. I think I picked up one of those one time in college as a roadmap to end poverty. I was trying to spit on your meerkat followers.
Why you wait till I drink to say something funny?
As a roadmap to end poverty and hunger, fight inequality, and conquer climate change over the next 15 years, it's going to require about $3 trillion a year.
That's it?
To enact the SDGs. Now listen, I can tell you how to get for $5 to pick up an SDG, you know what I'm saying?
Anything you want.
It takes Bang Ki-moon to another level, you know what I'm talking
Anything you want. You do boom boom soul brother.
Mind me not to take you to the Bangkok spa. Alright, so
the hour. You must go home now.
Go to radio.battlefield.buzz to get showtimes, the latest audio and video podcast, links to our affiliates and social media sites, and latest announcements from the Battlefield Live radio program. We are here to fix the machine.
Hi, I'm Sam, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Dr. Larry Arnn on the 3 branches of government.
There's a lot of confusion these days about the relationship of the 3 branches of government, especially among many who are in government. Some think the judiciary sits atop the other 2 branches, the legislative and the executive. Others think the president sits above Congress and the courts. In fact, all 3 branches are equally accountable to the Constitution and therefore to the people who made the Constitution. The President, members of Congress, and federal judges all take an oath to the Constitution. In making the laws, Congress must adhere to the Constitution. In executing the laws, the President must abide by the Constitution. In interpreting the laws, judges are bound by the Constitution. All the people's representatives are accountable to the Constitution, and therein lies our liberty.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
So, Trey, what did you think of Chris Christie last night?
See, I don't think people realize, but when he said take the cameras off of him, what he meant is that it takes 3 cameras shooting him simultaneously for him just to get on the screen.
I don't know if you noticed, but about halfway through the thing, he dunked down and got him a bite of a donut.
No, I did. I saw him duck down, and when he did, like, all of the girth in him, when he went down, it like tripped up the 2 people to his right, like a wave at the beach. They fell backwards and like looked at him, and he was like, "My bad, I had to get this donut."
Dude, did you hear it?
You know, it was almost like a growling sound.
Yes, listen, well, right in the very, very beginning. Check this out. Right.
While I'm as entertained as anyone by this personal back and forth.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, I heard it.
What was that? That was his stomach. That's why he went down and got him a bite.
Apparently he didn't eat before. Oh, no, wait, no. Actually, he ate just before he went up on stage.
I guess maybe he was having a little digestive issues. Go to radio.battlefield.buzz to get showtimes, the latest audio and video podcast, links to our affiliates and social media sites, and latest announcements from the Battlefield Live radio program. We are here to fix the machine.
We're here to fix the machine.
So I want to thank you for listening to us on the Battlefield Live radio program. It's been quite a interesting show. A lot of difficulties here with some of the technical aspects of it. But look, what I want you to do, I'd like you to go to lanterns.buzz as well as the battlefield.buzz or battlefield.buzz. Lanterns.buzz, there's a ton of information there. We have a pretty interactive blog that we're putting together. Currently, there's a bunch of things that we've written. And you can also go to Buzz Radio. Buzz Radio is our new network that we're putting together. And we're actually looking for some talent out there. There's other people on other networks. And even if you wanted to come and share on our network just a recording of your work, obviously you'll have to fit the profile of our intent here at Buzz Radio Network. But we're trying to get the message out. This is a very important election coming up. And, it's not going to be done by us just sitting and watching television and watching debates. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take us getting out and talking to people. It's going to take us, putting our talents together in order to be able to spread the word. And if you're a conservative, which I hope you are, you're going to need a lot of effort out there, because I think that conservatism, as easy it is to articulate, it's hard to get people to listen. So there's a need for new media out there. So that's why we've opened up our cannons, if you will, and started shooting things across the proverbial battlefield to places like YouTube. We have a YouTube channel there. You can go to youtube.com / I can't even look. The easiest thing to do is just go to YouTube and type in Lanterns Buzz or lanterns.buzz or the hashtag Lanterns Buzz, and you should be able to find our channel there. Or you can just go to lanterns.buzz on the bottom. There's a link. Also, you can follow us on Spreaker at Spreaker.com /user /Lanterns Buzz, and we have our podcast there. Or you can just go to iTunes. We've got an iTunes app. If you go to iTunes and just search Lanterns Buzz or Buzz Radio Network is probably the best thing to search. You can find our app there, and we have our own personalized app for iOS right now. We don't have it for Android, and you can listen to our show from week to week. We broadcast 3 to 4 times a week. We're on War Radio Network and Red State Talk Radio. War Radio, we're on Thursday night at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, and we're on Red State Talk Radio on Saturdays at noon Central Standard Time, and I'm trying to think what our time is on Saturday. Actually, you can go to radio.battlefield.buzz, and we have our schedule there. Also, we got a couple of Twitter accounts. You can follow us at Lanterns Buzz on Twitter. You can follow me at Paul Revere again. And you can follow Trey at T-Ribe Radio. You can also follow us on Facebook, facebook.com /Lanterns Buzz. You can follow me at facebook.com / Paul Revere again. And lastly, you can actually pick up our account on Google Plus. We have a Google Plus account. It's not as trafficked as the others, but we're there. So if you're a Google Plus fanatic, you can go there. So all right. So let's dig back into this, Trey, and
talk about like the 10 biggest issues right now. We're talking about budget spending and the debt. We're talking about civil liberties, education. Schools everywhere should really stop to think about the moral issues as it pertains to Donald Trump. This is a guy who clearly has been born and raised, lived all of his life in Manhattan, in New York City. He admits back in 1999 that growing up in that environment clearly has shaped his values, New York City values, progressive or liberal values. He would at the time say that he would President Trump would not work to ban abortion on any level. He would be okay. He gets it, the whole gay marriage thing. But in 1999, the idea of 2 men or 2 women marrying was really, it was kind of far off. It was a little far-fetched. People didn't really think it could happen. So he says in his own words that he's a New York liberal. And it's because of the environment that he's grown up in, he's worked in, he's been raised in. And then he goes to Liberty University, and really, if you get an opportunity, go see the real Donald Trump. Because here's a guy who is completely uncomfortable just getting up and speaking in front of a group of Christians. Right. And the primary reason is because he knows that his audience is more intelligent, or more, not so much intelligent, more educated, more familiar with the content that he's speaking about, that of course being the Bible and Christianity, outside of a platitude. Saying that Christians are being beheaded in the Middle East, you don't have to be a Christian to know that. Saying that Christianity is under persecution, you don't really have to be, you just have to listen to a couple of people to know that. But when he goes into quoting the Bible, there's no one who's been a Christian for more than 5 minutes who says 2 Corinthians or 1 Corinthian. Nobody. It's 2 Corinthians. And most Christians know that. But that's not even the big issue. The bigger issue is that Donald Trump has built his entire campaign around not pandering. which is what really made it interesting to see him standing there with Sarah Palin and her yatty, Alaskan-y, folksy sounding voice, rah-rah and cheerleading for Donald Trump. And she is, to me, she's the epitome of what the Tea Party movement in a lot of ways has become. It's become female emotionalism.
Ooh, Trey. That seems to me like that could kind of ring some bells there.
Yeah, and maybe I'm not trying to be politically correct here. But the fact of it is, and we've said this, you and I are on the record of saying this, that the Tea Party movement is primarily an emotional, angry female movement. Most Tea Party groups are led by strong female leadership, and this is not any sort of what's the word I'm looking for?
Misogynistic?
Yes, misogynistic. I'm not saying this in a misogynistic way, but what I am saying is that men tend to be more logical, women tend to be more emotional. Those are trends. Those are tendencies within our between the two genders. So I'm not saying that women can't lead. There's a lot of great female leaders. The Republicans have one in the race in Carly. She's been a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. You don't get there being an idiot. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying
why is it that you think it's that way? Because I don't disagree with you. I mean, I know a lot of guys
that
are in that movement.
Number one, women tend to be, I think, because fear is an emotion, I think fear tends to affect men and women differently.
Right.
The idea, fear, a man does only one of two things with fear. He either goes head on into it to eliminate it because he doesn't like the feeling of fear, or he retreats and tucks his tail and runs. So, but a woman, on the other hand, she kind of like pets it. She thinks about it. She wants to know about the fear, and she wants to do something about it. But it's an emotional thing. So I think there's an attraction. It's like we talked about the other day with what Alinsky and especially what Trump has done well with. It's, I'm going to do something awesome. It's going to be great. And then he shares something that's fear-driven. So it's like, hey, I'm going to build a wall. It's going to be tall. It's going to keep everybody out. It's going to be like the Great Wall of China, except it's going to be the Great Wall of Trump. And by the way, did you hear there was some illegal immigrants who shot a girl in the head in San Francisco? That won't happen under Donald Trump. It's that sort of kind of like ping pong tactic where he hits you with some real, doesn't tell you how he's going to do it. It's no different than Bernie. Bernie never gets up there and says, I'm going to have to raise taxes to give you all this free crap by $19.6 trillion. You never get into the fine details because people can't follow the details. We've been the electorate is so dumbed down that it's got to stay at a bumper sticker, at a Twitter 140 character or less explanation. That's why people like Rand Paul can't really gain any traction except with people who take the time to try and understand what he's saying.
So to me, I think that, first of all, I used to be a stockbroker. So one of the things that we learned when we were brokers that people operate under two types of influences, fear and greed. Okay.
Right.
And fear and self-interest, it depends how you want to look at it. But it's fear and greed. Sure. I mean, self-interest is a form of greed. Absolutely. If you want to try to maybe put a negative connotation on greed,
or narrow it down. Yeah, I agree.
So the bottom line is that people operate under fear and greed. So when people want things, they want to do better for themselves. They are motivated by that. If people are a fear of losing something or losing their life or whatever, they're motivated in another way. Right. So you're hitting on something here that I think is very important. Now, there are legitimate fears. I have a fear. I'm in the oil industry. Okay, I work in a refinery in chemical plants and so forth. And refining is really hurting right now because of the price of oil. So I am concerned and in fear and may make a reaction in order to to go in a certain way that will help eliminate that fear. And let me narrow this down to the Donald Trump conversation, because I think we've kind of steered a little bit.
Well, that's okay, because I think they're touching on something that a lot of people are not willing to talk about and get into the psyche of both men and women, but the American voter in general. And,
that's right.
So
and I don't think that, operating on fear is mutually exclusive to women, but for the most part, I think your evaluation is correct. But
your question though, Chris, was about the whole thing with women leading the Tea Party movement. The second part to that, besides the emotionalism of what we're fed on a daily basis, it's crisis after crisis after crisis, after bad news after bad news. The other half to it though, and then we'll come back to your point, is just simply that still, as much as women work and are out in the workplace today, still the fact remains is that most men tend to be still the breadwinner of their families. They still tend to be the ones who do most of the work. Again, not all families. But I think that's why, and so there's a time issue. Men tend to want to, when they're not working, they tend to want to do things like hunt, fish, watch sports, tend to want to do other things like hobbies and whatnot. Not necessarily, especially conservatives. Remember, the Tea Party movement in general is unique because it involves conservatives, and conservatives in general aren't the protesty, picking in the streets, let's get together and shut down a city or...
Like right now, things are slow in my business. So what am I doing? Am I out trying to influence the electorate? No, I'm actually trying to expand some business ventures in order to supplement maybe a possible slowing of my income. So what I'll get into though is that we were mentioning before how people operate on fear.
Right.
Okay. So Donald Trump goes into Iowa, which we're going to be seeing the Iowa, primaries are really going to kind of heat up here. And what is it that Iowa is really, really known for?
Corn and ethanol.
That's right. Ethanol subsidies. So when we start talking about whether or not Donald Trump is truly a conservative, we need to address the issue of ethanol subsidies, because what ethanol subsidies are, I don't know if you all are familiar with this, and I'm in refining, so I'm privy to maybe a little more information than most. But if you go to the gas pump and it says ethanol in gas or something to that nature, when you're filling up your tank, part of that
it says like 10% ethanol.
Right. So there's a blend of your fuel. It's a blend of regular gasoline as well as ethanol, and ethanol comes from, for the most part, corn. Okay, so. First and foremost, ethanol is extremely dirty to create. And a lot of people think of it, well, it's just corn. Well, think about this. In order to create ethanol, you need tractors, you need trucks to move the corn, you need trucks to move the ethanol, because you can't put ethanol in a piping system because it's extremely corrosive. So they actually, I believe the latest stat that I read was it takes 3 gallons of gasoline to create 4 gallons of ethanol. So the idea that ethanol is cleaner for the environment is absolutely false and fabricated.
Doesn't it also burn dirtier too, Chris? Like it's corrosive inside a vehicle?
Oh yes, it's very bad for your engine. In fact, if you have an outboard motor, if you're any boating guys out there or gals, you know that if you put something with ethanol into your motor, it will cause problems.
All right, well, let me ask you this. Here locally, and someone the other day called in to the Mark Levin show and made the same comment, and Mark kind of fussed at him for even calling the show to make this point, but I posed the same question to you that the guy gave to Mark.
Okay.
Here locally, there's a gas station that sells normal gas, which I call normal gas with the 10% ethanol in it. But they also sell, you can buy it without ethanol free.
That's right.
And it's almost maybe a quarter to 50 cents more expensive to not have ethanol in it.
Right.
If it cost more to make gas with ethanol in it, or to make the ethanol and then add it to the gas, why is it cheaper to buy gas at the pump with ethanol in it than it is without it?
Okay, so first of all, it's heavily subsidized. Ethanol is heavily subsidized. So it's cheaper
because the federal government has put a ton
so
of
the feds are picking up the cost of the actual greater cost. The feds kind of balance it off to make it beneficial for the farmers.
That's exactly right.
Gotcha.
The whole purpose of ethanol subsidies is to take care of farmers. It is not to create cleaner fuel. It is not to create something that's better for the environment. It's actually worse for the environment, and it's worse fuel for everyday vehicles. Now,
is there anything, Chris, that ethanol is used for outside of gas?
Now, okay, but it's got all this.
It crushes your vehicle's innards,
yes,
right?
It's not good for the car. It's not good for the vehicle. Now, General Motors and all these different companies have made parts for vehicles in order to handle ethanol, but it's made the vehicles more expensive. To go buy a flex fuel vehicle, it's more expensive, because they had to make more robust pieces of equipment for that vehicle to manage that ethanol. The whole
Isn't it amazing, though, Chris? And I know this is not the way you're heading, but isn't it still amazing to you that at the end of the day, still what turns out to be best for the environment, what turns out to be most efficient and cost-effective for the consumer is still oil and gas. Is that not amazing to you in 2016?
What's amazing to me is people disregard the fact that just about 99% of all the products that we use every single day and consume down here in this part of the country, down here in Louisiana.
Right.
You go down the Mississippi River Road, the road that runs on either side. There's plant after plant after plant. All of these facilities, I shouldn't say subsidized, they're a life form for people around this area. My whole career is based around oil.
Right.
Everything. Now, for the most part, everything that we use, everything that we drive, everything that we consume, when you go buy products, it's in things that are made from oil byproducts. Our entire economy is built on oil. And people somehow think that, first of all, it's dirty, which arguably it's one of the cleanest resources that we have that's available to us. And secondly, they think that they can just get rid of oil. Like we're gonna walk around in hemp clothes and
Chris, what is the general consensus then as far as Iowa politics? I don't know if you know or not, but is Ted Cruz running around talking about ending the ethanol subsidies?
Yes.
Is Trump not saying that?
No, in fact, Donald Trump is out saying that he's going to increase subsidies for ethanol.
Now, does every corn farmer in Iowa, somehow or another, has the government made them participate in the ethanol subsidies at any point?
At some part, corn subsidies, they're taking money out of your pocket, your federal tax dollars, and sending it over to places like Iowa so you could subsidize farmers over there for something that's not clean, for something that's not, it's just a big racket.
Have you ever wondered what has happened to the United States and its once vibrant culture? Have you ever wondered why a virtuous American culture has been in decay for over 60 to 70 years? The book Deus Ex Machina, God from the Machine, explains how foreign belief systems have been imported into the United States by foreign intellectual agents to be used to fundamentally transform the most prosperous and free nation in the world into a typical third world country. Learn how the progressive academics, progressive activists, large corporations, and the mainstream media have become appendages of the federal government, a Praetorian Guard, and an extension of the political vanguard class. Deus Ex Machina exposes the cogs of the machine that progresses our civil society to chaos and subjugation. Get this tool to educate others and illuminate the truth on the battlefield of ideas. Let's make a difference. Get Deus Ex Machina, the progression of secular socialism, from Amazon.com and Lulu.com today.